Yo, welcome to my Black Mage guide for Eden's vs Furor in Final Fantasy XIV, also known as E6. As I'm sure almost everyone can agree, this fight is absolute ball ache, not just for Black Mages but for all classes. This is due to many of the mechanics and their resulting AoEs being dependent on the positioning of players, therefore it makes it very hard to accurately predict safe spots such as where best to place your ley lines. That being said, I'm going to talk through some of the tactics and thought processes that I use just to, not only survive the fight, but maintain a reasonable amount of uptime. So we're going to run through our opening rotation as normal up until the placement of our first ley lines. The first mechanic is Ferrostorm, which will emanate two conal AoEs covering two quadrants of the arena from Garuda's position. The timing of your first triple cast makes it easy just to run forward into the safe zone dictated by the absence of a spike. It's worth placing your lines close to Garuda and the rest of the group, as shortly the two markers which require two players to stack to avoid being catapulted into the air will appear. If you get the marker and you're too far away, you'll find that other players might not be able to see because of their camera angles, meaning you'll have to run forward. By staying close to the group, it makes it much easier for other players to stack with you, or you to stack with other players. If you do get the marker, I'd just stay still unless another player comes to you. I know that sounds a bit selfish, but it's very annoying when both markers keep moving around. Next up there's a pushback, which you can counter with Surecast, followed by another set of pair markers. Now a little hint from our good friend Captain Hindsight is that I could have put my ley lines a little bit further out towards the edge of the arena. I would have still been easily close enough to everyone, however it would have meant that I didn't need to move for that pushback at all. Storm of Fury next, which will place a tether on two players, resulting in a conal AoE. If you get one of these tethers, to be honest I'd just stay still. It makes it much easier for everyone else to adjust, including the other tethered player if one of the tethers isn't moving. There's now a 20 to 25 second window of clear casting time. All you need to do is just make sure that you've pre-positioned yourself to avoid this vacuum slice. When facing Garuda solo, it will always be between the west and east points, so make sure that you are just north or south to avoid it. You can then jump to another player once they have made their way into the safe area created by these orbs. Once you've been pushed forward, just carry on casting as much as you can before Garuda disappears to be replaced by Ifrit. Now though this transition phase isn't very long, it is worth remembering your Enochian timer. Try and finish on a Fire, a Despair, or in your Unbelight phase, which is what I prefer to do, so that I can then plough straight into my Astral Fire phase as soon as Ifrit touches down. With regards to ley lines, I just pop them down roughly centre of the arena so you're not too far away from either Ifrit or the rest of your team. After Ifrit's had a bash at the tank, we're going to have Hands of Hell, which places a marker on one of the players, which then will give them 3 tethers, 2 of which need to be taken by 2 other players. Similar to Garuda's Storm of Fury, when facing Ifrit alone, there's really no need to move for this, regardless of whether you get the tether or not. If you do get the tether, it actually makes life easier for other players to get the tether from you if you're not moving. It doesn't even matter if you get hit because you're in the path of someone else's tether, you can just stay in your ley lines confidently for the full 30 seconds there. You'll then have to move for instant incineration, which after hitting the tank drops AoE circles beneath the 4 DPS. Next up, pre-position yourself roughly in the centre of the arena for the upcoming Strike Spark. Fireballs will appear around the edge of the arena, and then Ifrit will jump to one to kick it inwards, revealing a safe spot. By being roughly in the centre of the arena, it means that regardless of where he jumps to, you will be in range of players to jump to. Once you've jumped to the safe zone, you've got about 20 seconds worth of clear casting time before Ifrit disappears. As with the first transition phase, it's worth noting where you are in your rotation and how your Enochian timer is looking. Though the gap isn't long, it's enough for you to drop Enochian if you're not careful, or have to use Transpose to avoid doing so, which we don't ideally want to do. In addition to keeping an eye on your Enochian timer, make sure you look at your polyglot stacks. Use one up if necessary before each transition phase to avoid capping and losing a potential Xenoglossy because you have nothing to target. At the start of this phase, hang around your teammates, it will make it easier to avoid these AoE puddles which drop below the DPS. Once you've avoided that AoE, you can drop your ley lines roughly in the centre of the arena up against the vacuum slice column. As Garuda and Ifrit can move around a lot in this phase following the tanks, that placement of ley lines should enable you to hit either one of them regardless of where they are in the arena. However, that being said, Garuda's pair markers and Ifrit's Hands of Hell tethers can make it difficult to stay in the ley lines during this phase, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'd honestly recommend using your Mana Ward here, which will mostly nullify one of these tether hits or the pair stack-up markers. The reason for this is Garuda throws in a cheeky Ferrostorm, which if you're not looking for can be fatal combined with that previous damage. Time for the final transition phase, and ideally you want to finish on a Blizzard, or if like me you weren't paying attention you can always Transpose. Same as before, throw in a Xenoglossy if needed to avoid capping during this phase. Stack up your Humble Hearts during the transition phase so that you're ready to hit Rack to Pack so hard with Astral Fire. When the boss lands, run to the northeast, just to the side of the northern cardinal point. This will be one of the safe zones created by the following AoE. The reason I suggest going here and not one of the other two safe zones is that you will then find it easier to avoid the upcoming Furor. Due to the nature of conal AoEs emanating from a boss's position, the closer you are to the boss will result in far less movement required to avoid them. After Furor there'll be a Hands of Flame tank buster. Move to the other side of the boss directly opposite the tank. This then pre-positions you well from the column that's created. Very shortly after, 2 pair stack up markers and a Hands of Hell set of tethers will appear. Make sure you're really close to the boss, and just before you move to stack up or take a tether, place down your ley lines in the hitbox. Then move away from the boss to avoid the AoEs on the floor, and you've got time for about 1 or 2 casts before the Hands of Hell hit. Using between the lines, you can then jump back to your ley lines, which you'll find are in the safe spot, which was below where the boss originally was. Time for a pushback, which can be countered with shorecast, but be aware that the boss is then very briefly untargetable, so you want to make sure that you're in a good place in your rotation to avoid dropping a Nokian. When the boss reappears, it will start to cast Conflag Strike. During the cast, various AoEs will drop, alternating between set patterns and AoEs dropping beneath player positions. There are 2 set patterns of AoEs that can appear, one with a safe zone towards the centre of the arena and the other with 3 safe zones around the outside of the arena. Which patterns drop and the order in which they drop is random and cannot be predicted. Therefore, I'd just be ready to run. It can be messy to try and select players that have already made it to the safe zone in time. The only important thing to do is make sure that you are behind the boss at the end of the cast bar to avoid the huge cleave. After that, stay close to the boss, which will make it easy to avoid the upcoming Furor Storm and deal with the pair stack-up markers. Coming up soon after, there'll be another Storm of Fury, which will put down a large AoE around the boss, and then 2 players will be tethered. The nasty difference this time round is that just after those tethers appear, some AoEs will appear beneath some of the players. If you run out too fast, there's a danger you'll drop an AoE down in the safe zone, so to avoid this, simply stay close to the boss in that central AoE until the AoEs on the floor have appeared, then you can run out to safety. From there on, it's pretty much rinse and repeat until the boss is down. To say this fight can be chaotic would be putting it mildly, but I hope that you found this guide useful, and next up I'll be doing Eden's Verse Iconoclasm. Bye now!